Hello, this is Amy Dean, and welcome to our Awakening Spiritually Together show. And for those of you who are new, I am a holistic therapist and soul ascension coach, and I help empathic women who struggle with perfectionism, doubt, self-criticism, heal their inner child, and live their purpose as they awaken spiritually. So maybe you struggle with anxiety or depression or perfectionism, shame, criticism. Maybe you want to heal your inner child. You want to understand how to really step into the gifts of being an empath, right? The blessings of being an empath. And so you are in the right place if you are interested in spiritual growth. And today I'm going to be teaching 3 life-changing principles to reset your overwhelmed mind. And just so you know, every week on Tuesday, I am here. So make sure you are, if you can make it. And if you're ready, let's get started. So as usual, I highly suggest you take notes at the beginning, and then I'm going to dive in with a meditation later on in our little class here. So get comfortable, make sure you have no distractions, and we're going to get started. So what can be really helpful before we even dive into these life-changing principles is to understand a bit about the particular modality that I'm going to share with you today. So as a therapist and coach, I do use many holistic tools to help my clients heal as quickly as possible. However, one of my favorite modalities is something called ACT or ACT. It also is known as acceptance and commitment therapy. And one way of looking at this too, there's an acronym for ACT, and it means A, accept your thoughts and feelings. C, choose a valued direction. And 3, take action. So I'm going to break this down very simply for you so you can utilize these principles, and we're going to do a practice as well so that you know exactly how to bring this into your life, which is, of course, the most important. So first, let's just talk a little bit about what is ACT. What is this all about? So you have a foundational understanding as to what these 3 principles are. So the whole idea around this is that we want to create a rich and meaningful life where we are deeply connected to our values and staying in tune with the truth of who we are, right, is what it comes down to. What I really love about ACT 2 is that it puts an emphasis on mindfulness and surrendering and being present. And so it really drives home all the things that I love to teach. And so I thought this was perfect timing, since I know there's many of you who are struggling with overwhelm. There's so much happening in the world, and I want to help you feel more at ease and not have to feel like you have to be productive all the time or have to make things happen all the time, and to really help you to live a more simple and relaxing and peaceful life for yourself. So one thing about ACT is that it helps us create distance from our thoughts, which is very important. If you have any experience with mindfulness, you know that our thoughts create a lot of our emotional disturbances inside. So there's 2 core components of ACT. And this helps us better understand these 3 principles that I'll go into in just a bit here. So the first core psychological process is cognitive fusion, and another is experiential avoidance. Now, these 2, and I'm definitely going to flesh that out a bit so it makes more sense, but these 2 are responsible for our mind-based suffering. This is what causes us to suffer. So let's explore them one by one. So first, cognitive fusion is this belief that we are our thoughts, right? We're enmeshed with them, we're hooked into them, and we really believe that this is who we are, right? And we don't really question the mind. So when we create diffusion in the mind, which is a huge goal of ACT, you can see a thought for what it is. It's just an ongoing word that becomes a sentence in your mind or a series of pictures in your mind. And they're just these different energetic experiences, is how I come from it, or the perspective I come from as well, is that it's energetic in addition, right, to knowing that these are thoughts and emotions. So knowing this, for example, diffusion would be something like, this thought isn't true. I don't believe 100% in this thought. And if you're familiar with Byron Katie's work, she really drives that point home, right? When you start to question your thoughts and understand that not everything, actually most things that your mind tells you is not 100% accurate. So this diffusion is just creating space, right? It's just giving you space so that you are not drawn into the mind. You're not hooked into it. And in this diffused state, you are also not afraid. You're not overwhelmed. You're not anxious. You are recognizing these thoughts are not me. This is not who I am in the moment. And so that's what cognitive fusion looks like, is when we're fused with our thoughts. And diffusion means that we are reconnecting with the space within us and this sense of agency of, wait, I don't have to listen to every single thing though that my thoughts tell me, right? So that is what that, one psychological process is. And then we look at number 2 here, which is experiential avoidance. Now, this is the real and true chronic struggle that we have as human beings. We want to push away, we want to avoid, we want to get rid of these unwanted experiences, these feelings that are coming up within us. And you may have noticed that the more you try to get rid of things, the more they cause problems in your life, right? So the more we suffer, the more we end up feeling disconnected from our highest self. So if we consider for a moment, let's talk about someone who suffers with an anxiety disorder. Anxiety and overwhelm is natural, first and foremost, for us to experience as human beings. However, something becomes an anxiety disorder when we are in this state of experiential avoidance. It means we're trying to avoid anything that would activate that anxiety response in our body, which then, of course, activates the overwhelm, right, that we might experience in our body as well. So we could do this with anything, though. Experiential avoidance doesn't have to be just, some kind of disorder that you might be struggling with. It might be something like an addiction. It could be every day you're just trying to find things that don't trigger those inner wounds inside. And instead you're working towards pleasure and avoiding pain. It might be really subtle in your everyday life, but this is what creates suffering in our mind. And it's so interesting if you think about it, right? The more that we seek out pleasure and avoid pain, right? Because we're trying to seek out something that is obviously keeping us from hurting. But in the short term, it's working. In the long term, it's harming, right? So we want to look at it that way for a moment. And now I think it's really great to give you the framework of these 3 principles of ACT so that you have a really clear understanding as to how to start to reset your mind, to reset anxiety, and to move into a state of calm and ease in your body. So let's talk about what those 3 principles are. This is also called the ACT triflex, and I like to call it 3 principles because it just seems a little bit easier that way. But feel free to write these down, and then we're going to do a little experimentation together so you get a chance to see what this is like and what this feels like for you. So number 1, the first principle is to be present. Now I'm going to break this down a bit. So this is observing yourself. This in ACT is called self as context, right? We realize that we are self-aware. We can make decisions from this place. We can make choices. We have agency. We are watching our thoughts. We're making contact with the present moment through feeling where we are and taking in the sounds in the room and just really becoming attentive to our every moment experience. So this is the essence of mindfulness, right? It's just paying attention to the present. And that would be the first principle. So that's number 1. Number 2 is open up. Now, the whole context behind open up is that we want to first, right, diffuse from our thoughts, which is what we just talked about. So you want to diffuse from that cognitive fusion that's happening. And we want to choose acceptance of our life's circumstances. Now, one thing about acceptance that I think is really important is that when we accept something, it doesn't mean that we stop trying to make things better in our life. It just means that we're not trying to control the uncontrollable, right? We're not trying to suppress and resist and try to make things better by, of course, making things harder. So when we surrender, when we let go, right, when we create some diffusion in our mind, then we are opening up. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of practice on that as well. And then number 3 principle is to do what matters. Now, this is connecting with your deeply held values. What's important to you? And sometimes we think of these things as in categories of, well, family is important to me, or friendships, or my work, or my hobbies, my passions. And maybe, all of these things do matter. Maybe it's, the way that you interact in your community. All of these things are wonderful. In act, the way that we think about it is it's more of a doing, right? So how can you live your values? So in the context or in the category of spirituality, maybe how might you live the values of spirituality? Maybe it is to be still, to be present, to slow down, to stop speeding up, to make things happen faster, right? Or to multitask, and instead to take it one step at a time. So that would be one of your values, for example, in the spirituality category. Maybe for you, it's family. And then a value in family might be something like to love unconditionally, right? To love my family members unconditionally, to be kind, right? When someone says something hurtful, to not say something hurtful back, but to be kind and loving to myself and to others. So it's more of what we do, right? And this is why it's called Do What Matters. And so, of course, it is important to discover what are my major life categories that I connect with and that I feel most define my world and what's important to me. And then you look at, what do I want to be as a result of that value category? How do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to live my best life, right? So that's what this looks like, is to really get in touch with this knowing that you have these values, and if you're not living them, they often lead to depression and anxiety. So one thing that's very important is that overwhelm is a very clear sign that you're diffused with thoughts. I also like to say, from the place that I come from, is that we talk about thoughts as subpersonalities as well, which are just these split off parts of ourselves, right, that have ultimately created their own identities within our psyche. So overwhelm means we're diffused with these parts of us. We're diffused with these thoughts. And often we're also in experiential avoidance because we're trying to suppress or fix the problem, right? So how many times have you noticed that when you're overwhelmed, I know this could be a lot for a lot of people, that you tend to launch into more action, right? It's like as soon as you become overwhelmed, you feel that heightened energy inside. And what you want to do is you want to push through it, don't you? Well, I just got to get more stuff done then, right? I just have to, check more things off my to-do list because I'm overwhelmed. And getting more things done will reduce the overwhelm, right? Is our idea in the moment. However, counterintuitive it might seem to this, but what can be really helpful is to slow down, to take a breath, and to come back to balance in the moment. Because what's happening here is that you have these problem solvers in your mind, right? You're diffused with thoughts and you're trying to make something happen. So now you're in the experiential avoidance, right? And now you're trying to avoid the feeling that you have, and you're trying to run away from that feeling without even knowing it. Right? I just want to feel better. I just got to make this happen, right? And then you get irritable and all these different things. So just recognize if that's happening for you. It can be a very simple step just to take a deep breath, come back to presence, and acknowledge that from that mind, from that clear mind, you can make better decisions, right? That better really influence your life and help you to connect more deeply with your values. So I'm going to take you through a little meditation here so you can start to practice these 3 principles. So find a comfortable spot if you're not already, and just gently close your eyes, coming to your seat, allowing yourself to relax and unwind. And I'm going to walk you through this so you can easily do this on your own in the future. So as your eyes are closed, I just invite you to take a deep breath and exhale. Let it all go. Let the day go. Let yourself release and relax. And notice what it's like to watch your mind. Now, this could be something new for you, or maybe you've tried this before, but this is a new moment, right? This is beginner's mind. Notice as you pay attention to the thoughts running through your mind, maybe it's like a movie. So imagine you're watching a movie. Each thought might be a character in your movie. And you don't have to overthink this, but just to give some context to your experience, you might even name or label that movie. Just overall, just noticing, eyes closed. Is the movie of my mind something like a comedy right now? Is it something like a thriller? Is it a really sad movie right now happening in my head? So just labeling that for yourself if that feels appropriate, if that feels on point. And notice. Just notice what's here, what's present, what's available in this moment. And as you're doing that, watching your mind, labeling, I encourage you just to continue to come back to your breath. Each time, just to create that sense of being embodied and somatically connected. You might feel the air in your skin. You might feel where you're sitting in the chair as you take in your breath through your nose and out through your nose. And so this is the first principle right here, which is just to be present, to choose to be present. And so now just letting go, allowing anything to leave that does not serve you. And we're going to move to that second principle, which is to open up. So notice where you feel overwhelmed inside. So just checking from head to toe. Often we tend to feel overwhelmed in our chest or in our belly, or maybe it's in your head or your hands. So if you cannot in any way pinpoint it, just stay with the feeling sense. Let the thoughts come up, the thoughts about overwhelm, about all you have to do, about all the things that you don't have time for. Just let that story run if it's running somewhere in the background of your awareness. And just now, eyes are still closed, maybe your hands on your heart, to come to yourself with compassion. And just asking, can I be open to this? Even for just a moment. Can I give this overwhelm permission to be here? Can I allow it to be? Can I accept that it's here? And that it's not who I am, it's just an energy movement happening within my body. So let that just arrive in the way it needs to within your body and your mind. Take a moment, just notice, can I allow? Can I open? And if you notice a no, notice that even within the no, you can still open. Because our thoughts, again, this is the fusion of the mind, and we're creating diffusion just by deciding or choosing that we want to open up. So making that choice and letting yourself feel the way your body needs to feel as you allow it to be here. Good. Just one moment, just 2 moments, not very long, right? We're just allowing in small doses here. And now I just invite you to take one deep breath in and come back to the room again, opening your eyes. And then I want to share this third principle with you, which you take into the rest of your day or your evening. And that is to do what matters. Now reflect on what your values are today or going into the next day, if that feels like the best thing to do going forward. So ask yourself, do I want to be loving? Do I want to be kind to myself? How do I want to live over the next 24 hours? Do I want to move at a slower pace? Do I want to be more intentional in my day? And do I want to be more mindful of the thoughts running through my mind? So choose one value, if you can, over the next 24 hours. Commit to it. Really focus on it. Make sure all of your attention is on it. And that will help you get back on track. That will help you recognize that overwhelm does not need to be your everyday experience. It can just come and it will go as we allow it to, right? As we just allow it to come and go. It's just natural. It's not going to stay here forever. So, of course, use this whenever you need. Anytime overwhelm strikes, anytime you have anxiety show up in your body. But definitely over the next 24 hours, I highly encourage you to practice this and to share with us in the group. Are you noticing any changes, any new discoveries as a result of practicing these principles? And I just want to thank you as usual for joining and being here. And just know that every month we have a new theme, and every week I am teaching on that theme and bringing these new topics to light and helping us to dive deeper. So if you are interested in stepping into your awakened life and you want to explore how I might be able to help, then please do book a call on my calendar. I often have just a few 15-minute slots open each week, and it's first come, first serve. So if you'd like to, feel free, and I'd be happy to explore with you some ways I might be able to help and some resources and tools that might be able to assist you, and then programs and resources that might be able to help you not only work through overwhelm, but to help you deepen your spiritual awakening journey along the way. Any questions, please do leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them there. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and I will see you all next week. Take care, everyone.